What's up everybody, Kong Spideyzilla back with another video, and today's video is going to be another fan story. This one is Godzilla versus the Hulk. I'm continuing on with my series of fan stories. The previous one was Godzilla versus Bowser. I recommend that you check that one out. And I'm continuing because I realized Godzilla vs. Bowser fan story, my previous video, has actually gotten some attention. Or a bit of some attention, at least. So, and plus, I do want to continue the series, and I have an interest in it. And I'm curious to hear your opinions on my fan stories, and I also want to share these with you. So, I'm not going to let this drag on long, like the previous story. I actually want to make this short, because it makes me kind of cringe that my previous story, fan story, just dragged out for so dang long. But, I had to a lot of it to explain. So so here's this next fan story, Godzilla versus Hulk. So I'm going to do two more after this one. And I honestly want to do this in this specific order. So I did Godzilla versus Bowser first, and now the next one on my list is Godzilla versus Hulk. And then I'm going to save the two other ones for surprise. So, let's get straight to it. So, I'm going to lay down, the ground rules here again. These are my own imaginary takes on the characters, kind of imaginary versions, basically, or ones that I would do in like basically write in a film. Basically, well, writing the story. Pretty much, check out Godzilla vs. Bowser, fan story, my previous video. How I describe, these are basically imaginary versions, like the character, imaginary versions of these characters. So, like, for example, these characters don't have the abilities to, like, travel through multiple multiverses, and destroy them. I'm not having that in here. Like, Hulk's base power level is kind of more like the MCU Hulk here, but he's very different. And let's just say probably he is more of a force to be reckoned with. I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. Hint, more like dangerous in power. Same thing goes for Godzilla too. So, I want to get right to it. So, without further ado, let's begin. This is Godzilla versus Hulk. Our story begins with Bruce Banner on the run from the US Army, the military, and General Ross. Yes, this is at a time where we could say that something happened, and it maybe kind of messed Bruce Banner up a little bit, and now Banner's once again in a state where once again he's trying to regain control of the Hulk. We can probably say that this is due to, like, an event that probably happened a while back, like something involving the Avengers and his last fight with the leader. Let's say that. And maybe that, like, intense scenario might have somehow messed him up mentally, and the Hulk up as well. So basically now Bruce Banner has to train himself again to regain control of the Hulk. But, things have been not been going well lately, and the US Army and General Ross are basically on the hunt for him again. And maybe this is also there's another story thing where maybe he kind of had a little bit of a fallout with the Avengers, basically. Like some type of explanation and how is he like this again, and why is he on the run from General Ross in the military again. So, there you go. After a good long while of running from the military, well, obviously, he's on the run, and after a good long while, he decides to head to Japan. Out of panic, he basically ends up fleeing to Japan, basically. But however, General Ross in the US Army, they track him down. Of course, Betty is trying to interfere, and we cut to basically underwater a Japanese army sub on the hunt for something, and they have this certain powerful weapon to take out this supposed creature. We already know who this is. But however, it fails, and it does nothing but basically pee the creature off. And of course, that's obviously Godzilla. He destroys the sub, they're basically all rest in peace, and explosion happens underwater, and then I like to cut to the title sequence here. The title cards, because I like to imagine these as like movies that like we've never seen before. And I really get into the story to the point where I really want to imagine it like it's a movie. And I would actually like to have the opening sequence have like a theme of radiation and that stuff, because if you think about it, these two are created from radiation, technically. They're originally, normal living things or beings, but then, they became unnatural once, radiation got a hold of them. For Hulk, it's gamma radiation. For Godzilla, nuclear radiation. So cool opening sequence there, title cards, and then we cut back to the rest of the story. The US Army and General Ross track Bruce Banner, and that they actually finally track him down. He's in Japan, and they finally get to his location. He catches on that they are onto him, and as you can tell, everything goes to poop from there. The Hulk is accidentally unleashed, and he ends up causing a big ruckus in basically this city in Japan somewhere. The Hulk ends up causing plenty of destruction, takes out plenty of the military, and the Japanese army gets involved. And basically, they're wondering, like, what is this other monster and that stuff. There's this other monster wreaking havoc and causing destruction. And now the US Army has to explain for themselves. And the Japanese Army actually kind of gets peed off at them because they do not want another, like, indestructible monster threat. And the US Army, they're obviously pretty kind of aware of the kaiju attacks in Japan. So they end up all having this meeting with each other, and the typical human characters we see in Godzilla movie get involved. The typical normal Hulk characters get involved, a couple of them, and we could probably say definitely Betty Ross is in there as well. They basically start having conversations. General Ross and the US military big group that's hunting down Bruce Banner, the Hulk, and the Japanese army, they actually start to share plenty in common, and they introduce them about, to Godzilla. Basically, they explain about, they talk about Godzilla to them, and they explain about him that, he can either be their destroyer or their savior, and he's been fighting these other monsters for years and that stuff, even ones he allied with or ones that he just killed and destroyed, basically. That, that's been going on for years. General Ross and the US Army start to really relate because, they deal with one as well, the Hulk, basically. But, there's still two different stories, but they share plenty in common. And eventually, after a lot of conversations and talking, they actually start to relate to each other and start to connect over this. And The Japanese army just wants something like just to put Godzilla down, like not really destroy him because they might need him for like an unexpected other kaiju threat, you say, and maybe something that could, you know, worn down the Hulk. And they basically end up going a bit crazy over the idea, and they finally say, let's actually work together. Maybe we should make these two fight each other, but let's have them fight in an area where, like, let's have them duke it out in an area where nobody will get hurt, or lots of destruction will get caused. Betty hears about the conversation and she is very worried for Bruce Banner. Let's say that every now and then, a couple times, Betty will secretly get in touch with Bruce, and it's the typical normal love story between them. And basically, from here on out, it's basically like a Hulk. Sorry, overuse of the word basically, but it's exactly like a Hulk movie combined with a Godzilla movie. You have the military trying to dispose of Godzilla, Godzilla destroying cities, and you have Bruce Banner transforming into the Hulk because he's on the run to the military and he ends up wreaking havoc. And these two are very, like, really just show off the destructive power of these two radioactive beasts. In the military, it's so hard for them to do jack poop against these guys. And they're trying like everything in their power to like take these monsters down, two of them down, and they're trying to find a way like how we're gonna lead them to each other and have there be like cool action scenes in here, like Godzilla basically obviously destroying a city. Typical Godzilla scenes, action scenes where you see him fighting in the military and really go town like to town on them with basically in the ocean, basically. Sorry again. Dang it. Overuse of the word basically again. I apologize. Really wrecking them in the ocean, even if they have their battleships, they still just stand no chance against him. And hey, neither of them stand a chance against him. Have it to where even the U.S. Army tries to take on Godzilla, and the Japanese army tries to take on the Hulk. Like they even switch jobs a bit, and you know they're still to no succeed. They're still trying to figure out a way like how we're gonna lure them to each other. And that's the thing. I really don't have as much to say for this story, like the Godzilla versus Bowser one. And the base, to describe the rest of this fan story, it's think about it as pretty much like a Hulk movie combined with a Godzilla movie. But the main part here is Godzilla fighting the Hulk. Now, here's where things are going to get interesting. And this just so happens to be correct timing. Obviously, there's a reason why, you know, the movie's called Godzilla versus Hulk. Not only it's a Godzilla movie combined with the Hulk movie, it can be equally their film, but the main plan here is to get them to fight each other so both armies can dispose of them for good. Or something that can at least put them down for like a good long while. Your typical human scenes and military planning, and General Ross even explains to like main heads of like the global defense force and that stuff that who Bruce Banner is and how the Hulk came to be. And they even like I said, the Japanese army and global defense force are Godzilla human characters basically. Sorry again. Our Godzilla human characters also explain to General Ross on who Godzilla is. You know, both of these guys, they basically spawned from radiation. They were both once living normal beings, but Godzilla being an undiscovered species of dinosaur known as the Godzillasaurus, and how, Bruce Banner, was a scientist and still is, but then, the accident happened. The bombings of World War II was what really created you know, these radioactive entities, basically. And they have a lot in common. Like everything they try to do, sometimes they succeed, but they always, come back. And even then, it seems like it's nearly dang impossible for them to even take these guys down. And that's why they came up with the plan to somehow get these two to meet and fight each other. Something to just really like make them be defeated for like a good long while, a long time, or possibly put them both down for good. But they know the destruction they're going to cause, and Betty does does not want to have this because she loves Bruce, and she ends up knowing about how powerful Godzilla is, and she actually worries for Bruce. She cares for him, and she's worried for Bruce. Basically, obviously, she doesn't want the Hulk to fight Godzilla. Because she's worried for Bruce. She knows that eventually he could find a way to control the Hulk again, but General Ross, he's kind of going crazy. It's just that Bruce is back on the run again, and General Ross is doubtful. He thinks that Bruce Banner, you know, is untrustworthy when it comes to controlling the Hulk because of what happened. Finally, what happens to thanks to pretty much great or good time slash good timing here is that another scenario happens again, but this time out in a field, a military base somewhere. And when Bruce and Betty are having one of their private conversations, they get interrupted by the military. Bruce freaks out. He doesn't want to hurt anybody, but it's no use. The Hulk, he comes out, he transforms into him. It's the Hulk wrecking stuff, and he ends up destroying the nearby military force in the open field. However, nearby, in the ocean, an ambush was planned for Godzilla, but that failed. They stand no chance against him, obviously. He wipes the floor with them, piece of cake wise. But then, stuff gets realized like, oh shoot, Godzilla and the Hulk are close to each other. So Godzilla is he actually senses something is up. He he senses something is basically I'm so sorry. Dang it me. I highly apologize for the overuse of the word basically. I'm gonna try to stop saying that. He senses that something is up. He goes to check it out. He goes on land. He hears a bunch of ruckus. Like there's this overall battle going on in the open field. And if you want to say like what is this open field you talk about? Just imagine it as something like Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, how those two had a fight, in the Heisei era, how those two had a fight on like a big open field. And this is nearby a military base. And apparently there was more of an ambush plan for Godzilla, but then he managed to avoid it. And apparently that was near a cliff, and they had a very powerful explosives. However, Godzilla accidentally ended up walking past it. But then Godzilla notices in the distance there's a lot of ruckus going on. He goes to check it out, and it's obviously the Hulk fighting the military. After whooping the military's butt there, the Hulk and Betty have a heart to heart moment. She ends up trying to calm the Hulk down. The moment Hulk catches a glimpse of her, he stops, being angry. He instantly calms down, and he obviously already won. They're basically weakened at the moment, the military that was fighting Hulk. And just when the military can get back into position, they hear the roar of Godzilla, including Hulk and Betty Ross. Hulk actually carries Betty to safety and actually goes to fight Godzilla. Finally, these two meet up, have their first fight, and Hulk obviously sees Godzilla as a threat, so he's gonna fight him. But the way Godzilla reacts to him, he's like, what the fooey? Who's this little weird thing?" He basically looks at Hulk, basically like he's a pretty much like imagine like a very brave, courageous person, bold person having a standoff with a spider, basically. Like Godzilla's all like, "Oh, like look how small you are. You're trying to get tough with me." Godzilla's just looking at him like he's a weirdo, like he's some type of strange, weird entity. But Hulk sees him as a full-on threat. He goes full force on Godzilla, and Godzilla, the basically like how he fights him at first, Godzilla actually just starts to play around with the Hulk a bit, but it's like very rough, playful playing, like messing around. Like Godzilla is still trying to like take him out or get him out of his way, but he's not taking Hulk that seriously. And then it's quickly goes into like just full on pure annoyance. Godzilla gets very annoyed, and that's when he starts to get full force. He starts to go full force on Hulk a bit, not his full power. And then it appears at this point, it's like, wow, the Hulk doesn't look like he's standing a chance so far. But as the fight goes on, the Hulk manages to endure Godzilla's attacks just managingly, and this only gets him angrier. And you know what that means? When he gets angrier, the stronger he gets. And Hulk was already starting to get a little angry and was already growing like pretty powerful. When he was fighting the military that were there. Until he started getting calmed down by Betty, but then that led into him fighting Godzilla. Now the Hulk starts to get angrier and angrier throughout the fight. Meanwhile, Godzilla is getting more confused and irritated of the Hulk to the point where Godzilla is like, okay, I'm full on annoyed of this guy. Why won't he dang die? Die already. You can see Godzilla's frustration and trying to kill the Hulk, but the Hulk just really manages to hang on and, keeps coming back and is only getting angrier. To the point where finally his attacks actually start to hurt Godzilla a little tiny bit. And apparently, this first fight, well, you can say that in movie time, maybe it would be like 5 minutes long, basically. I'm sorry that overusing that word. Maybe movie time or normal fight scene time, the fight will go on for 5 minutes long. But, I also want to say that, plot wise, like these two have been fighting for like a couple hours. And the nature environment starts to get really damaged. And eventually, the Hulk starts to really get some good damage on Godzilla to the point where now Godzilla is starting to take this fight seriously. Then they fight on for like a good little while, and then eventually the first fight comes to a climax where they end up going back towards the other trap that the military set up for Godzilla. That ends up blowing up. They fall off the cliff, Showa style, with basically the sorry again. Dang it, said it again. Terribly sorry. The Hulk is on top of Godzilla's head, and he is just really like Hulk slamming his head. He's pounding with his Godzilla's head with both of his fists. Godzilla is really trying to get the Hulk off of his head, and then they both end up falling into the ocean together. The fight picks up underwater, and Godzilla's trying to track down the Hulk, but the Hulk is surprisingly doing a little well underwater, but he's still at a major disadvantage. More damage is caused to the Hulk, and the Hulk manages to actually survive down there underwater with his fight with Godzilla underwater. And the they end up causing damage to like the mountainside above the water, and the mountain starts to crumble and crash into the ocean. Well, the cliffside. And these two somehow managed to output so much destructive power in that certain scenario that a Godzilla versus Mothra Heisei era style, when Godzilla was fighting Batra in his larvae form underwater, some type of crater is formed. Like maybe there isn't heat in that stuff and lava. Like imagine like an earthquake under the water happens. Like a bit of an earthquake under the water, and like they both end up in like falling in like an underwater, like a gigantic underwater crater, hole that gets created. And eventually this way the two get separated, and Hulk 2003 style, Hulk ends up in another city somewhere. He bursts out of the ground. Like think where at first the military thinks they succeeded. They feel like they did, but they had this doubt and they were right. The Hulk, now even more peed off, Hulk 2003 style, bursts out of the ground in another city in Japan, and then he wreaks havoc there. But then it's like, obviously, it's like the Hulk 2003. Betty eventually finds him, and then the Hulk calms down, and then he transforms back to Bruce Banner, and this leads into the military finally capturing him. But that's not all. They want to use the Hulk to fight Godzilla. So they basically tell Bruce Banner, "Hey, we want to use your big green angry fella there to fight against our monster that has been causing us destruction, but has also been helping and saving us. But we desperately need help right now. Just to put something to put him down for a while, or maybe put him down for good. Who knows?" And basically, the Godzilla human characters are talking like that to him, and it's like he's like, no, like you guys don't understand like how much destructive power would, the amount of destruction that'll be caused. Bruce Banner is still trying to regain control of his Hulk ego. And somewhere, Mothra versus Godzilla style, Godzilla emerges from the ground. Pretty much at the same time, the Hulk reemerged from the ground. Mothra versus Godzilla style, Godzilla emerges from the ground, and he's alive as well. Big surprise. Bruce Banner really wants to take control of the Hulk, but he can't really seem to do it at the moment. He needs more time, but they really want him to like fight Godzilla right away. Like they don't care if he has control of the Hulk or not. They want him to fight Godzilla still, just in a non-city type environment. So he's in a military base somewhere and kind of being held hostage, but he's being held captive by the military. And Hulk 2003 video game style, he finds a way out of the military base. Like Betty is just worried for him that he may not make it against, in the fight against Godzilla, and he'll probably die along with Godzilla. So Bruce Banner's plan is that they don't want to listen to him. They want to use the Hulk no matter what, whether he has no control of it. But Bruce Banner really wants that control of the Hulk. He needs it. He's just struggling at the moment because, I described, you can imagine it, what event happened, involving the leader, or like an epic hero versus villain thing with the Avengers, and something mentally like, or some type of superpower from like a villain had like a certain effect on him, and he needs to get the Hulk back into shape, regain full control. And in some parts of the movie, I want to show that these characters are not only just, destructive radioactive beasts, but they're also very sympathetical creatures. And they can be pretty tragic in some way, shape, in some way. Like we do care for these characters, and like we have like major sympathy for them. And these guys, both of them have some tragic backstory. You might be wondering, like, is there like a team up in here? Is there like something in here that's pulling? No, no, they're actually, it's Godzilla and the Hulk. It's just them two. That's the main focus of the movie. That's them fighting each other. I honestly wanted this to be, a bit unique from the other ones. I wanted to just be Godzilla and the Hulk. They're fighting each other, and it's full on force of nature versus force of nature. So, if you're wondering about that, yeah, there you go. So, Bruce Banner luckily manages to escape the base, and obviously, they know something's up. And by the way, I would want to have this like in Osaka somewhere, near Osaka. And Bruce Banner promises that because he's a good guy, he wants to help them, like maybe like fight against Godzilla, but he needs time to regain control of the Hulk, or it's possibly doom for Japan, or possibly a part of the world. The destructive power both the Hulk and Godzilla possess. And if there is plot holes, feel free to correct, probably improve my story. I'm allowing you guys to do that. So there you go. If there are plot holes, help me correct my issues. Feel free to do so. But however, the military suspected something like this will happen. So they actually had spies around the area in the nearby city. They catch on to Bruce, and unexpectedly, out of nowhere, Godzilla chooses his next location to be Osaka. Oh man, this is not looking good. And even worse, now they found Bruce Banner, and they're trying to track him down, and this might lead to him getting angry. Uh oh. Now, definitely not good. Banner is trying with all his might to escape and just keep the Hulk under control. And then, in one unfortunate movement, Betty actually gets injured while the military or the spies are trying to actually assassinate Bruce. She doesn't die, she just gets injured. But the poor guy just cannot hold it back anymore, and he transforms into the Hulk. Now even more angrier than average, which means now immediately he's even more powerful than average. Alert is an alert is called, and reinforcements come in, and they do whatever it takes to fight the Hulk and take care of him, but just makes him angrier. Oh yeah, even worse. Godzilla is still making his way over to Osaka, and you know he's there now. Godzilla starts wreaking havoc on Osaka as well, and meanwhile the Hulk is getting angrier and building up power. More destruction is caused throughout Osaka, and eventually, you knew it. Eventually, they worse of the use overuse of the word eventually. Wow, my bad. I am terribly sorry. Of course, they end up meeting again, and then this is like their final match here. The Hulk is even angrier now, and he is on a bigger, basically now on a bigger power level. Basically, again, dang it. I'm sorry. I am so sorry, guys. I don't know what's with me today. I guess I'm just tired. The Hulk is even angrier now, and Godzilla and the Hulk, they remember each other. So when they actually lay eyes on each other, they they get peed off again. That's when they get raged. Godzilla is like really like next like level annoyed to like just really angry. Hulk is just like extremely peed off. And now it's like there can only be one dominance, radioactive beast here. And their final battle takes place in Osaka. And you know, it's in the city, and a lot of destruction is caused, a lot of people are hurt, and possibly even worse. The battle is more intense this time because Godzilla is taking this more seriously, and the Hulk is even more rageful now. So, like, the stakes are raised kind of higher this time, and their fights at the moment get pretty brutal. Hulk stabs a big, sharp object into Godzilla. He bleeds a bit. Godzilla bites the Hulk at one point. Hulk even suffers like a gigantic, humongous, like, claw mark on his entire body, but then he basically heals up. Godzilla heals from the damage too, and like have it like really like Godzilla's frustration has reached over the max. Now he's getting peed off like the Hulk. Like we can really like imagine that Godzilla's just starting to go like really crazy now. The Hulk manages to take damage, so even worse. Hulk's rage is rising throughout the fight. Plenty of destruction is caused. A lot of buildings get destroyed and structures. And like want to show off a cool theme for the fight. Like with Godzilla, there's like a lot of blue. With Hulk, there's a lot of green. Plenty of explosions. Lots of Godzilla using his atomic breath. Plenty of points. Hulk, using his signature moves, his thunderclap, his smash move. Just by them fighting, whole lot of destructive damages caused to Osaka. Obviously, Osaka, a homage to when, Godzilla had his first fight against another monster, Anguirus. What led into this was just all unfortunate timing and an unfortunate scenario. And, again, I would have it to where, you know, the actual fight time here would be 10 minutes. But, actual plot, story, apparently they've been fighting for like hours, even much more hours than like the first fight. And I want Hulk to use even the cool moves that he used on the Abomination in the Incredible Hulk 2008 movie. They also show off some badassness in this fight. Badassness. I'm sorry, I'm one of those rare people that do not like to swear or cuss. But you know what I mean. Eventually, after plenty of fighting, it looks like the fight ends in a very shocking way. Godzilla eats the Hulk. He swallows him, he devours him, and the fight is over? No. Hulk gets angrier. He is taking damage in Godzilla's stomach, and that is when he starts to really try to tear Godzilla up from the inside. Godzilla tries with all of his might to atomic breath the Hulk out of there. It makes the Hulk angry, but he's in a lot of pain. So Godzilla manages to get him out of his stomach by blasting his atomic breath, and both of them are actually weakened. Both of them are weakened from this scenario happening in the middle of in the final battle. And then, what do you know? They're both weakened, but this pees them off even more. And Godzilla, this is when Godzilla has just had enough. He's trying to go full force, and Hulk is even at a more rageful level now. It gets to the point where the Hulk becomes very powerful now, to the point where he's actually able to stop Godzilla's foot, make him trip, and one point he actually manages to grab him by the tail and kind of swing him into the water. And obviously, I want to have it at one point where they crash into the pagoda again. I apologize if I'm saying that wrong, but I think it's pagoda. I want them to crash into the pagoda, keeping that Godzilla tradition that happened in the Showa series. And then they have a fight in the water again. Then Godzilla just full on has had enough. He just tears the Hulk up underwater and bites him one last time, and then atomic breaths the guy into the air all the way up to probably the atmosphere. Goji going beast mode. And then we have a moment where it looks like the Hulk, he's like kind of half dead in the atmosphere. But then you have a Hulk 2003 scenario where, like, is he dead? Is he defeated? Wait, he's still in his form, but he's still the Hulk, but he's passed out. And then the Hulk Bruce Banner probably has a inside the Hulk alter ego. He has a flashback to his tragic past, his sad story, and then next thing you know, he wakes up again in the atmosphere, and Hulk has now reached his maximum level of rage. All the stuff from earlier that made him angry, that fighting for hours, now leading into the daytime, the sunrise. Shout out to Zimaut Animation for his Hulk versus One Punch Man fight, and go check out his Godzilla versus King Kong fight while you're at it. The reason I'm bringing this up is because, like in that spoiler alert, that Hulk versus One Punch Man animation, where a point where Hulk reaches like possibly his true full maximum power. Same thing happens here. He forces himself to drop from the atmosphere, and he starts falling like a green gamma meteorite towards the earth, towards back at Godzilla. Godzilla didn't celebrate right away. He sensed that something was up. He looks up, and Godzilla Final War style, he sees, you know, the green energy, the green, looking meteorite coming towards him. Godzilla felt and guessed like this was the Hulk coming back again. And Godzilla just had a feeling that he really needed to show his full power. And he had a feeling that it was the Hulk still. And Godzilla takes it seriously to the next level. And to the point where Godzilla just says, well, obviously, like a joke version, like Godzilla's like, you know what, screw this. Back to the story itself. That's what he basically is like, though. Then he starts charging up the spiral ray atomic breath, and then and a cool epic moment right when the Hulk, as like a burning gamma meteorite about to crash land into Godzilla's mouth, Right when this happens, Godzilla fires the spiral ray breath, colliding with the Hulk's full power. Godzilla's full power versus the Hulk's full power. And you know what this leads to? Just a big, humongous, gigantic explosion. Like one of the most powerful impacts that the world has ever taken. Like top five or top three. That was like a dang nuke that went off. And all of a sudden, it becomes like one of those disaster movies that you see. And Osaka gets messed up even more from this damage. Explosions cover the coast. A bit of a flood happens. More buildings crash. And it looks like Osaka, like a little bit of a mini earthquake happens again. Like a bit of an earthquake. And while Osaka is kind of almost, literally almost destroyed, and they're like, it's like there's almost nothing left. There's not really that much left. And the Hulk and Godzilla, they're nowhere to be seen. They're gone. The military can't track them down. They can't track them on their radar. And I want to have like a thing like Godzilla 1954, Godzilla 1954, and it basically shows like a sad scene where the destruction that's caused, kind of like Godzilla Raids Again as well, where it's sad that a lot of chaos and destruction happened in this city. So yeah, pretty messed up situation. And I want to kind of come up with some message here that at points in scenarios like this, some of the humans in that scenario are the bad guys, but they didn't realize it. And now they're like noticing. And now the military realize, both armies notice that they've messed up big time. They feel very guilty that all that destruction is caused. They should have listened to Bruce Banner and waited. But Godzilla was gonna keep destroying their cities and that stuff. It's like what could they do? What we could have done? And basically like a bit of a tragic scene like we saw in Godzilla 1954, destruction caused. It's a little sad. And Betty, awaking from like an injury and recovering in bed, she realized that what happened, what she feared, Bruce was gone. And they can't track down no Godzilla. And General Ross feels immediate guilt, and then Betty becomes very sad, and she starts to get to a point where she's like, she's possibly never gonna forgive her dad. But both Godzilla and the Hulk were, that plan worked apparently. They were both gotten rid of. The the fight supposedly ends in a tie with Godzilla and the Hulk seemingly perished. They're both gone. And it's kind of a tragic moment. It's very much a tragic moment. Betty is kind of mourning the possible death of Bruce. It's a very depressing scenario, not to mention the destruction that happened to the people in Osaka. And then our story gets ready to conclude and end. But however, a I guess you could say a specific underwater camera catches a glimpse of a huge 100-meter creature going by. And on the news in Japan, it's like impossible. Like the Japanese army and global defense force, they're like, impossible. No way did he. Yes, Godzilla survived. He, you know, much like a scene in Freddy versus Jason, I would want to have the Godzilla like the scene in Freddy versus Jason when Jason emerges and it looks like he's victorious, right? And then he walks out of the water with Freddy's head. I want to have it be like that, where Godzilla, the Godzilla theme plays, he emerges from the water and then does a roar. But that's not all. Betty is just, she wants to have this positive feeling that maybe Bruce survived, but she's still mourning. But then the U.S. Army and General Ross, after a long while of investigating, actually tracked down that Bruce is still alive. And in the Hulk 2003 ending type scene, we see him that he's still alive, and the Hulk is still around. He's on the run again, and he's in a certain type of peace now, and now he is working on, regaining control of the Hulk. So, it's one big tie. And that concludes the story. The end. So, that was my fan story, Godzilla versus the Hulk. So let me know down in the comment section below, what did you guys think of it? Could anything be improved? And if there's any plot holes, well, go ahead, fix them. I would like to see you guys, add on and improve my story, and curious to hear your thoughts on it. So without further ado, I'll end the video right there. If you liked the video, don't be shy, go ahead and like it. And if you like the content I do on my channel, well, don't be shy, be sure to subscribe. Hope you have a good morning, a good night, or a good afternoon, whatever time of the day you're watching this. And as good old Kong Spideyzilla says, peace out.